Everyone, and lovely to be back with you for another video. If we've not met yet, I'm James Poulter, CEO and one of the co-founders here at Vixen Labs, and we are doing this in a rather special place today because we are at the Experience Centre at DIAGEO, the drinks conglomerate manufacturer giant around the world. Their one HQ here in central London in Soho, at their Experience Centre, surrounded by innovations of all sorts, both liquid and practical and digital, and that's exactly what we are here to discuss, is the big trends that are happening in the world of innovation. And I'm joined by my dear friend and colleague, Mr. Harvey, who is, I'm going to try and get this right, Senior Manager for Global Breakthrough Digital Innovation, something along those lines.
Something along those lines.
You tell us what that means.
Yes. No, thank you for having me, mate. And thank you for coming over. I really appreciate it. So I'm Will Harvey. I'm part of DIAGEO's Breakthrough Innovation team. And our role and responsibility is to think about the future, think big 5-year vision, and then look at how we can start small and test and learn. So not just kind of future gazing, but really rolling our sleeves up and making the future happen by testing and learning and understanding how new digital technologies and ways that people are going to celebrate life every day, everywhere, and the future consumer experiences and celebration and what that means. So understanding what the future of the home looks like, what the future of the bar looks like, what the future of having a nice dinner parties together, and what is the role for brands in those new environments, really.
I mean, here in the Experience Centre, we're surrounded by these different environments. Some of them, as we can see behind us, this kind of kitchen setup. You've got this wonderful shot out there of, you know, kind of what the store might look like, and also, as you mentioned there, in the bar. And innovation seems to be well, the title is in the name, breaking through in all of these different spaces and places. And not only is it practical innovations, things in the way in which liquids are made, but also in the way in which they're delivered through the hardware technology. And you guys are thinking really heavily also about the role that AI will play in the future of what that experience and experiences will look like. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you guys are thinking about AI here at Diageo?
Yeah, I think it's, as we all know, we see lots of these conferences and these sessions at the moment. I think AI is not necessarily something new. It's something that is exciting about how it's going to transform the way we operate, the way consumers engage with our brands. I think the reason why we've seen this sudden explosion, as we know, is the accessibility of these technologies to a larger consumer base. It's not just about the few, it's the many. And for us, it's thinking about how do we use this to make smart business decisions from an analytical side of things, which we've been doing for a number of years already. But what we are focusing on, at least within the breakthrough team, is thinking about what is those new consumer propositions, what are the consumer facing opportunities, these new tools, these new services, and these new kind of things are going to be able to unlock for whether it's a new product or service or way that someone engages or interacts with one another. It's really that consumer impact that this is going to have, as well as thinking about what is that enterprise side for a large corporate, what it means for them.
So it's coming into all different places, and it's coming at a rate of knots, as you've described. At the start of the year, we put together some kind of trends, and I feel silly to even be thinking about only 6 months ago how some of those have already begun to come to fruition. Others are emerging. One of the big things that we talked about at the start of the year was that this would be the year where different AIs would begin to, you know, kind of battle it out, and there would be a real race. We started the start of the year with ChatGPT really like striking the headlines, and obviously very quickly we've seen a number of these different competitors from Google, from Amazon, and many others arrive. How are you reflecting on like these different AIs that are emerging? What are the kind of big differences that you're seeing between them, and what is it maybe telling you about where this might go in the next 6 months?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one for a large organization such as us and the brands that we represent, whether it's a Johnny Walker, a Don Julio, a Gordon's, a Pimm's. Each of them have certain audiences and demographics in different groups, and we got to think about how these large technology organizations, these enterprise aspects, how and what are their relationships with those different demographics and those different age groups. And there are certain areas and environments that we think about. What does this mean? We have certain relationships with some of these bigger players. And it's making sure, I think, that it's not going into this next generation of computing and what this is potentially going to mean is that it's not going to be about just being a one horseback thing.
Mm.
It is a transformational shift across so many different sectors and different enterprises that it is not like in the early days of kind of voice necessarily.
Yeah.
When we were kind of experimenting in the early days about backing one ecosystem over another, it's about a larger shift that's happening with
Mm.
the way that content is being consumed, kind of the way it's being created, and the way that we need to think about how we put that out on our responsibility in these spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned there about voice in the early days. One of the other trends that we highlighted this year was that Alexa would become essentially the single dominant player when it came to voice. Obviously, with Google Assistant, shutdown of Action Framework,
Mm.
and then they're obviously trying to do different things with generative search, which I think presents some interesting opportunities. But Alexa really is now the kind of sole player when it comes to voice. You guys have done quite a lot in the Alexa voice space, both with us and other partners. What's some of the things that you see where voice particularly is going to play a role in the future of these types of interactions?
Yeah, we've been experimenting for 4+ years, basically, in the
Yeah,
early days with the Alexa ecosystem. We try to be ecosystem agnostic. Like right now in our smart home, we've got an Alexa-enabled devices such as the fridges or the microwaves to think about where that consumer adoption is going to go. And I think there's an interesting space now that it is becoming. It's less about the hardware, and I think in the early days it was about baking
yeah,
it in. We had to do extra things, or it was, they're kind of we're coming off the back of Prime Day, and the amount of
yeah,
devices that are probably going to be shifted across different generations means that it's going to become more of an agnostic aspect of that spatial kind of computing in a way of or ambient listening.
mm,
We are experimenting about what does this enable us to do, what does it enable brands to do about bringing immersive experiences
yeah,
to environments where you may not physically be able to go. So
yeah,
the early days we did the Talisker tasting
yeah,
experience, which was allowing you to transport you to the Isle of Skye if you don't have a chance to go up to Scotland and make it accessible. Like, what does that look like next? What does the next generation of that was what we could do 4 years ago?
yeah,
What can we do now? And
yeah.
how can we think about the natural ability to unlock these experiences from a consumer standpoint, not just because we can, we just because we should be doing it because it's the right thing to do, really.
I remember though, if those years ago, you mentioned Talisker and how much work we would have to have gone into trying to capture the sound and the dialect and the language that goes around products like the whiskey that we were talking about there. We were able to talk to master distillers and get them verbatim, but now it feels like this new age of chatbots could unlock a whole different way of engaging with people.
Mm.
As we think forward now for the next 6 months ahead, or maybe into 2024, one of the things we want to do is get some hot takes on kind of where some of these AIs might be going. What's some of the things that you're seeing from the trends that are emerging at the moment that gives you a bit of an inkling of what might come, 6 to 12 months out from now?
Yeah, I think the language models that are coming out and understanding which of the ecosystems you need to start experimenting in. I think it's all too often we could spend 6 to 12 months trying to work out which is the right fit for us, but you need to put your kind of bit of skin in the game to
Yeah,
really start experimenting in these spaces because we could the speed of it, the way it moves right now compared to other existing technology adoptions, it's unprecedented. There's
yeah,
never been something like this before, and we need to. It's our important role for us to try and experiment, but also listen to the way that consumers want
yeah,
to use these experiences. Don't assume, listen to what they want and think about how you can experiment. So I think the language models and the evolution of that is really key right now. And the other area for us is really quite important is thinking about what this could do for the space of we're on the eve of iOS 17's just
right,
dropped.
yeah, of course.
And we haven't,
On my phone.
yeah, exactly. As early beta testers, we like to experiment with these things. And one of the new features is about enabling you to synthesize your voice.
Mm,
So, me in 15-minute session and a bit of processing being done, I could be able to start creating a very rough and rudimental version of a will chat
yeah,
interface where I can type something in. Now, we're only scratching the surface from a consumer level, what that's going to do for us. What does that mean
mhm,
from an enterprise level and the accessibility of synthesizing these authentic voices? That's what we tried to
yeah,
do in the early days
yeah, of course.
to really have that human element, but a real intelligence behind that as well.
Yeah, I know you guys are thinking a lot about how this might enable new types of media creation,
Yeah.
kind of advertising. We've seen some of that stuff showcased in recent weeks at events that you guys have been talking at. Synthetic media in general is a big question right now. I think one of my hot takes would be that over the next 6 months, we're going to see a bit of a backlash and then a resurgence of that synthetic media adoption. I think To your point, we're seeing a lot of people that are a little bit scared,
Mm.
quite frankly, by some of this AI that's coming out at the moment. And we wrote a recent blog post about this a couple of weeks ago about this idea of innovation paralysis that kind of is setting in with some large organizations right now, because either people are worried that it's going to come and take their jobs, and so therefore they're keeping it at bay, or they're just completely bamboozled by the amount of changes that are happening at this moment in time. How are you guys as a team thinking about, kind of taking these things into your process? It must be really difficult to stay. I mean, you need a chatbot just to keep on top of the updates about chatbots. Like,
Exactly.
how
Yeah.
are you guys handling that
Yeah.
input?
It's tough. It's information overload, and which horse to back is always a difficult one for us to know. And because we work across so many different sectors beyond just the AI ecosystem, beyond the idea of voice and these spaces, it's about making educated bets in certain spaces, but trying to make informed bets across a few different environments. And I think the idea of kind of that think big, start small is very much in our DNA. That we used to do lots of pilots. We do 30
Yeah,
pilots a year, but what we're doing now is bigger, bolder bets in certain
yeah,
spaces and being able to go a little bit more below the surface and moving beyond just projects, but to platform plays. I think that's a big thing for large organizations trying to create their own innovation initiatives, is not just doing individual, let's get a quick little headline trying to do something in AI.
yeah.
Let's really think about the platform opportunity this means for us as an organization beyond just doing something to get in a campaign headline
Yeah.
kind of thing.
No, I think that's really smart. And I think, one of the other things that we're noticing, and probably we'll project forward now for the next year ahead of our trends, is that I think one of the big things we're going to see is actually less chatbots.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is that, obviously we've just had Claude 2, for example, from Anthropic this week, just dropped, bigger parameter size, more tokens, bigger context windows, essentially all those things, meaning for those of you that don't necessarily know what I mean by that, it can do more things, and it has more capability, more memory. But I think one of the big things we're seeing is that, and sounds similar to what you're describing, is that AI is no longer just going to be this thing that we publicly engage with, but it's going to be woven into everything else,
Yeah.
and more in the background. Do you think that that's kind of the direction of travel, in terms of the way in which AI is being adopted into the projects you guys are thinking about those bigger bets?
Yeah, I think so in a way. I think the idea that it's not going to be a designated AI thing, it's going to become ambient into multiple different touch points. It is not the leading factor, it is an enabling factor. And I think that is
Yeah,
something that
that's really
needs to
helpful.
be kind of considered in those spaces, because we can always just think that is it. And it's so difficult sometimes that you are like, we do it because we think it's the right thing to do, but sometimes the right thing to do is to not do it.
Mm,
And that is a challenge that we
yeah,
have as an organization, because we have so many brands, so many markets, so many different ecosystems that we want to do these things with
yeah,
consumers and with our customers. It's that right choice at the right time. And sometimes it needs to evolve. The problem is the evolution of it is just going at light speed.
yeah,
To really guess what that looks like
yeah,
is a challenge. And it's important to do these trend things like you guys do, to be able to really tap into that and do a sense check. Like doing this now, right now, is important because it's moving at such a rapid pace. It's
yeah.
good to put content out, but you need to have that open conversation around it.
Yeah. We were together a week or so ago at Madfest here
Mm.
in London, and your colleague, boss, I think Benny,
Yeah.
friend of the show, was on stage sharing some of the things that you guys have worked on over the
Mm.
past couple of years, and he was very candid about sharing some of the experiments that haven't gone well,
Yeah.
things like, kind of, or not gone well, but just haven't proven to be the right bet in the right time. And I just wonder if, thinking back on the past 2 years really, coming out of COVID, we've seen this massive wave around Web3, massive wave around NFTs, and
Yeah.
then also the metaverse. And some of these things are not playing out quite how the prophets at the time spoke about them.
Yeah.
Do you feel we're in the same moment with AI? Is this all a big bubble waiting to burst, or is this a different moment?
I don't. It's difficult to predict. When you're in the
Correct
moment, it
answer.
feels, yeah, it's difficult to predict.
Correct
Says the
answer.
man who works in innovation.
Yeah.
I think it's important to always be a bit skeptical about these things. But I do, as someone that's been doing this like you for a number of years across different roles, it does feel this is a fundamental, the cat is out the bag kind of thing,
Yeah.
rather than a lot of these other things are incremental iterations of technology that may or may not be adopted with a consumer base because of early adoption into mass adoption. I think this when your mum starts asking you about ChatGPT, that's when you know it's getting into the popular
Yeah,
domain, and that
absolutely.
idea of that, and I think it's important to have the right narrative and make sure that we have a role and responsibility as well as the large and small organizations to hold account these new systems that are coming in place, because it could be all too easy to accept these new things without questioning what and how it works.
Yeah.
And we're going to see a lot of that, I really think, over the next 6 months or so, where people are really questioning, wait a second, where's this information coming from?
Mm,
Where's it going? How do I control it? And do I trust what it says? And
absolutely.
that's like that's not a new behavior. That's
No.
news and that's information as a whole. But because it's expanded in such a short amount of time, there
Mm,
will be a, a series of interesting times ahead, I
yeah.
think.
You guys meet all sorts of companies and startups.
Oh, see, it's listening.
See, they're always listening. You guys meet all sorts of people in the roles that you do here. Companies that, technology in this room alone is reflecting lots of different businesses.
Yeah.
Maybe just as a little kind of closing thought, maybe what's a couple of bits of tech that maybe isn't AI related, but people are that you're excited about, companies you're meeting, people that are interesting in the space at the moment. Who's got your eye? What's the next breakthrough in this innovation cycle?
Yeah, I think I'm very passionately excited about spatial computing, and not necessarily in the hardware sense, but the idea is where content is going to be free from the linear form of 16 by 9 formats. Coming off the screen, going beyond the screen is a really
Yeah,
something that's been spoken about for a number of years now, and voice is one of the early kind of
yeah,
examples of that, that content doesn't always have to be visual. It can be audible. It can not always be on a screen. And I think where we're going to eventually see technology catch up with the desire of content consumption in the home or out and about will really evolve and change the space, whether it's someone such as Apple Vision or whether
yeah.
it's Meta Pro or any other kind of up and coming startup. The idea of bringing content beyond the screen to share and add a layer of digital information over our physical environment in a form will really start to unlock possibilities of three-dimensional web in the real world environment. So that's quite exciting, and
Mm.
yeah, I'm excited where that might
Yeah,
potentially go.
I think with that, and this maybe is the thing that we're also seeing is that what it means to be content also
Mm,
doesn't have to be linear
yes.
either. Not something that has that you can pause and rewind or watch over again, but actually some of these immersive chat experiences,
Mm,
they are the content as well, and those things can live in the form of avatars, they can live in the form of chatbots, they can live in the form of voice experiences wherever they may be. But I agree with you there. I think that content living outside of that kind of 16 by 9 kind of window, it's also not just content that lives somewhere else that is video
yeah.
essentially, but has a different mode of interaction. So I
Mm.
think that's going to be exciting to see where that goes as well. Well, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to hang out. It's always a pleasure to spend some time with you and in this amazing place here at Diageo. So thank you to you guys for hosting us.
Thanks for coming over.
And thank you guys for watching. If you found this interesting or you've got questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below wherever you're watching this video, and we'll be back for another one very soon. But for now, thanks so much, Will, and thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.
Cheers. Thank you, mate.